Hello again. Welcome to today's class. In our previous class, we dissected the concept of a state and differentiated the state from the nation, and we also differentiated the nation from the society, and we also unveiled the relationship that exists between them. In today's class, we are going to talk about the concept of power. We are still on the topic concepts of government. Now, power can be defined as the ability to give instruction and compel obedience. Now, because of the term their ability, it means that power utilizes force. Now, so when you give someone an instruction and you know that that person will obey you because you have the right to, or you have the strength to compel that person to obey you, it means that you have power over that person. Now, power mostly utilizes punishment. The person that you are instructing is compelled or forced to obey you because the person knows that failure to obey will attract punishment. Now, there are four major forms of power. That is, there are four ways of distinguishing power. The number one form of power is political power. Number two, economic power. Number three, military power. And number four, naked power. Naked power is also known as physical power. Now let us start from the first, which is political power. Now, political power is derived from elections. Now, this means that for anyone to have political power, that person must be a de jure leader. Now, de jure is different from de facto. When a leader was voted into power by the electorate, that leader is a de jure leader, and that leader has the type of power called political leader. That leader is different from a leader that assumed power by force, who is called a de facto leader. For instance, on December 31st, 1983, General Muhammadu Buhari, in a coup d'etat against Shehu Shagari, who was Nigeria's first elected president under the party, National Party of Nigeria, NPN, Muhammadu Buhari, through a coup d'etat, although a bloodless coup, removed the government or toppled the government of Shehu Shagari. And so Muhammadu Buhari, from that period to when his own government was toppled by the government or by the person of General Ibrahim Babangida on August 27th, 1985, was a de facto leader. Now, I repeat, on December 31st, 1983, Muhammadu Buhari became a de facto leader because he became the head of state of Nigeria but was not elected by Nigerians. Now, but in 2015, from May 29th, 2015, this same Muhammadu Buhari became a de jure leader because he was now elected into government by the electorate of Nigeria. So it is when Muhammadu Buhari was president of Nigeria that Muhammadu Buhari had political power. Now, political power is the power that is derived or that is given to the head of government or to a government that derives its power through elections. And for any government to have political power, that government must be ruling a democratic state because political power only thrives in democracy. For a government to have political power, that government must be de jure. And a de jure government is a democratic government, a government that was voted into power. This means that military leaders are not de jure, they don't have political power. But civilian leaders who gain control of the state through elections have political power. And you must always remember that political power is given to the government by the people. And so when the government has political power, the government is always accountable to the people. Number two form of power is economic power. Economic power thrives with wealth. What this means is that for any country or government to have economic power, that government must be wealthy. An example of a government that has economic power in the world today is the government of the United States of America. Now, the 45th president of America is Donald Trump, is a member of the Republican Party, and he defeated his opponent in the elections conducted 4 years ago, who was Hillary Clinton, the former first lady who was married to Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton was the candidate of the Democratic Party. Now, America uses economic power to compel other states to do the bidding of America. America grants AIDS, not HIV, assistance to states. Now, when a state fails to follow the rules of America, America withdraws those aids from the state, and this can affect the state negatively. So when America gives an instruction to the world as the world's gendarme, means that America is the world's police. It is the greatest power in the world today, arguably. Now, before America ascended into prominence in the Second World War, the world's gendarme was Britain. That is why Britain was called Great Britain. Now, America can give instructions to the world, and any state that refuses to follow the instructions of America, America withdraws its aids from that state, and like I said previously, it affects the state negatively. Now, so if a state wants to continually receive aids from the USA, that state must abide by the laws of the USA. By this event or by this circumstance, the USA is using economic power to compel states to obey its instructions. Now, recently the USA gave a proclamation that any state that generates power through coal, that is charcoal, it will stop giving the state aids for its electricity. Now, what this means is that if a country wants to continually receive money from the USA, that country will stop generating its power through coal. Now, America is doing this because of the menace in the world today, a major global problem called global warming. Now, when countries generate their power through coal, it depletes the ozone layer. And when the ozone layer depletes, the intensity of the sun increases, and this has caused what they call climate change. Now, many countries have refrained from generating their power through coal because they want to continually enjoy the gifts of America. Now, most times when countries refuse to abide by the instructions of America, America can create an embargo. They do not buy from that country or sell to that country. Now, presently, Iran, which has its capital in Tehran, has the lowest currency in the world, the Iranian rial. This is not because Iran is a poor country, because Iran is an oil-producing country, but because America has placed several economic embargoes on Iran, and this has depleted the economy of Iran to the lowest ebb. So if Iran had accepted the instructions of America, Iran would have been enjoying economic growth today. So this is a way America uses its power, economic power. And so when a country is able to influence the behavior of another country through wealth, that country is using economic power on the other country. Let us even come to our mundane lives. You see a fellow student in SS2 or SS3, or in your JAMB class or your POST-UTME class, and tell her, I want to be your friend, and she snubs you. And the following day, you see her buying ice cream, and you buy her 100 naira ice cream, and she says hello, and she becomes your friend. You have used economic power on her. That brings us to the third form of power, which is called military power. Now, the military power of a state is determined by the military strength of that state. And the military strength of a state is determined by the armament, that is the ammunition that the state possesses, and the number of military personnel that the state also possesses. Now, what this means is that when a state has a large military force and a military arsenal that is unparalleled by other states in the world, it means that that state has the highest military strength in the world, and no state will want to fight with that state. Now, military power was first used in the magnitude that is seen by other states today, or seen by the world today as awesome, is the USA. Now, in the Second World War, the USA, for the first time in the history of the world, threw the nuclear weapon, threw an atomic bomb in two Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, in the Second World War, which commenced in 1939 and ended in 1945, this was a war between two major blocs. The first bloc was Germany, Italy, and Japan, who were against France, Britain, and Russia. Germany was, of course, headed by the dictator called Adolf Hitler, who was the leader of the Nazist party and the Nazist government. Now, America stepped into the war, and this war was almost parallel. It was almost even between the two parties that were involved. But when America stepped into this war and threw the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, two Japanese cities, that spelled the beginning of the end of the war. When America destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was nothing to fight for again by Japan. Japan surrendered. And of course, the evenness of the war became lopsided in favor of France, Britain, and Russia, who were now joined by the United States of America. And because of the military strength of the United States of America, the war was eventually won by the parties I have just mentioned that had a new member, Britain. Now, today, no country wants to go into war with the United States of America because they can remember when America threw the nuclear bomb, the nuclear weapon. And America codenamed this weapon, killed hundreds of thousands of people. Just an atomic bomb. And America codenamed this bomb Little John. Now, Little John could destroy two cities. What if America now chose Big John? So countries are very scared of going to war with America. And this has also increased the strength of America to dictate the tune that other countries will dance to. Now, let us come to West Africa. Countries like Togo, Niger, and Chad, and let us leave Niger and Chad, who are in Central Africa. Countries like Togo, Benin Republic. Now, these countries will always want to follow the instructions of Nigeria because Nigeria has a larger military strength, although sometimes people might say it is on paper and not in reality. Now, when a country has a large military force and has ammunition at its disposal, that country has military power. Now, the last of the forms of power is what we call physical power. Physical power has to do with the might. Physical power is also called naked power. This has to do with force. When an individual can influence the behavior of other individuals through might, that individual has physical power over the other individuals. For instance, you are in a class, your teacher does not, you are disturbing, you are making a noise, and your teacher looks at you with disdain, and immediately you keep quiet. The kind of power your teacher is using on you is what they call physical power, because you might be flogged or disciplined by him or her telling you to kneel down and carry out other punishments. Now, that being said, we'll move on to sources of power. Before we continue, I mentioned 4 forms of power, and I told you that power is the ability to influence the behavior of others through the use of force. Power has 4 forms: political, economic, military, and physical. Now we have sources of power. We have 1, inheritance. We have 2, coercion. We have 3, charisma. And let us call age. And of course we have wealth. Now, inheritance, when for instance the father of somebody had power in a monarchical system that is based on primogeniture. Now, primogeniture is the transfer of power from father to first son. So in a monarchical system, for instance, let us use the system of Egypt, where the king is called Pharaoh. When the Pharaoh dies, his first son becomes Pharaoh. That kind of transfer of power, or that kind of transfer of inheritance, is called primogeniture, from father to first son. So if the first son of a previous king gets the powers of the king at the demise of the king, that source of power is inheritance. Number 2, we have coercion. Now, when you derive power only through the use of force, or you compel the behavior of people to function in a certain way because of your ability to punish them, your source of power is from coercion. Coercion is also loosely referred to as force. Now, first source of power, inheritance. The second is coercion, when you can compel others to behave in the manner in which you want them to behave through the implementation of punishment, either in actuality or by deterrence. You are using, or your source of power is coercion. Number 3, we have charisma. Charisma has to do with personal charm. When people obey you because you are charming, because you have personal charm, not juju, but charm. The way you talk, the way you walk, the way you write, or the way you dress. People just like you for that, and because of that they obey you. They want to behave like you. Then what you have is charisma. For instance, the reason why Judas Iscariot had to identify Jesus Christ with a kiss, most Bible scholars say that because the disciples of Jesus looked like Jesus, they dressed like Jesus, kept their beards like Jesus, because they obeyed Jesus, because Jesus Christ had charms. He was charming to them. They wanted to be like him. They wanted to speak like him. They wanted to talk like him. Of course, walk like him, dress like him. Let us even come to Nigeria here. You see several Christ Embassy pastors wanting to preach like the General Overseer, Christ Oyakilome. It is because Oyakilome has a charm over them. They want to behave like him because they see him as charming. So when he gives an instruction, the other people, his members of his congregation, and even others that see him as charming, obey him because they want to be in his good books. Now, when this happens, of course, the source of the person's power is charisma. So we can say the source of Oyakhilom's power over his subordinates, if we are not being religious, is charisma. The source of the strength that Jesus Christ had over his disciples that was able to compel them to behave in a certain way is charisma. And let us move on to the next. Wealth. In a world of hypocrisy and sycophancy, when you have money, people obey you. Not because they like your decisions, but because they want to obey you for rewards. People tend to take your instructions when you are wealthy because they want to get gains of money from you. And so when you know that your instructions are obeyed, or you can compel the behavior of people because of the wealth you have, your source of power is what? Wealth. Let us come to our everyday life. You see children, when they misbehave, their parents say you are grounded, although that is not predominant in this part of the world. But we watch movies and see parents tell their children, you are grounded for 1 week. Now, the child does not want to be grounded. So the child behaves in accordance to the instructions of his or her parents. And when parents use punishment of grounding their children to compel them to behave in a certain way, their source of power is what? Wealth. And then we'll move on to age. Age is a source of power in this part of the world. Many people tend to obey others because they are older. And you see sometimes the instructions given are very terrible instructions, and you know that these instructions are terrible and they are laughable, but you just tend to obey them because you want to respect the age of the person in question. Are you following me? Now, when the instructions of an old man are obeyed by the young man, even though the young man knows that under normal circumstances these instructions are not to be obeyed, the source of the power of the old man is age. That being said, let us now try and differentiate between authority and power. I said power is the ability to give instructions, but authority does not dwell on ability but on right. This means that authority is the right to give instructions and expect obedience. Listen, authority is the right to give instructions and expect, not compel, expect obedience, while power is the ability to give instructions and compel obedience. Now, power may be legal, power may be legal or illegal. When the government is de jure, their power is legal. When the government is de facto, their power is illegal. Now, for instance, the power that armed robbers have over their victims is illegal, but the power that government has over its citizens is legal. But authority is always legal. For anyone to have authority over you, that person must have the right to have that authority. Authority is always de jure. Power can be de jure or de facto. Authority is always constitutional. Power may be constitutional or unconstitutional. What this means is that the fundamental body of laws that guide the behavior of a people may or may not back power, but this body of laws must back authority. Do not forget, this video was brought to you by Isaac Humanitarian Foundation, and do not forget to follow us on our platforms, on our social media platforms, www.isaachumanitarianfoundation.org, Facebook Isaac Humanitarian Foundation, Instagram Isaac at Isaac Humanitarian Foundation, and on YouTube Isaac Humanitarian Foundation.